So, you know when you're about 15 or 16, and your parents will say things like, "You're a young adult, so act like it. You need to grow up and be responsible." But they'll also say, no, don't do that. You're just a child, and I know better." It's bizarre, right? It's basically a paradox. Like you're expected to live up to adult standards, but without any of the perks and privileges of being one. Worst of both worlds. Kind of. Just keep that in mind. So hello, I don't really make videos like this. I am a small-time utiete and occasionally make classic Who memes. This isn't my ballpark. But I think about it sometimes, and whenever I look online, there's basically no discussion of it, so here we go. Hi, I'm a trans guy. I don't pass. I'm a 20-year-old guy with an unbroken voice and a decidedly not masculine body shape. I'm keen to remedy that, but as it stands, that's who I am. I am capable of passing, just seemingly based on the alignment of the planets or something. But it's not often, and actually it's so irregular, especially these days, I just basically assume it won't happen. This is hard to talk about without sounding maybe a bit casually cis-sexist, but please bear with me. I am biologically female, and have not yet taken medical steps to alter that. I'm also a blood donor, and that's fine. There's no inherent contradiction there, at least where I live in Scotland. Trans people are completely welcome to donate blood regardless of gender identity, and that's honestly great. I feel lucky to live in a country where, well, I don't feel safe exactly, but I don't feel a constantly enclosing terror from the government wanting me dead or anything like that. I can give blood. On paper, there are no barriers. On paper. So, here's what happens when you go to a Scot blood drive. You fill in the form about how you aren't pregnant and don't have AIDS, and then you get the finger prick test to see if you have enough hemoglobin. That's, like, from iron and stuff, to donate safely, since they don't want you to fall apart after they've taken your blood. If you pass, you wait for a donor bed to be free, and then you lie in it, and they stick a needle in your arm to take the donation. If you don't pass, they do another blood test, this time taking from your arm, to double check. If you pass that, you can donate, and if you don't, you have to leave and not come back for a few months. So I went to a blood drive like a month or two ago, after having been summoned by some letters from Scotblood, saying they need me. I'm O positive, the most common blood type in Scotland, so it's in high demand a lot of the time. And I go, and I get finger pricked, and the woman puts my drop of blood in her wee machine, and it turns out I have marginally failed. I am 1 gram per litre away from the cutoff. So annoying! So, I have to have the second blood test, where they take out your arm. So I wait for the second blood test. And honestly, it's a fun atmosphere. I don't know if it's weird to think that. Grace Kelly by Mika played on the stereo, and a donor carer saw me singing along, and she kind of laughed, and that was a nice moment. And I got the blood test. And by the way, I had to confirm my name and date of birth with basically every member of staff I talked to, but I'm terrible at speaking, and at least once I said I was born on 5th of the June, and sounded a bit like an alien. Okay, so I got the second blood test. And the woman says, "Which arm do you donate from?" And I say, "My right, because I'm left-handed." And she says, "Okay, we'll take the test sample from your left arm then, because we can't take a donation from the same side we took the test." And I'm like, okay, cool. I take off my 87 layers of hoodies and jackets and get stabbed in the left arm. She tests my blood. I am now 1 gram per litre above the cutoff, so I can donate tonight. Yay! My friends Carrie and Sarah are with me, but they're not donating. They're just waiting across the room while all this happens, and I'm relaying the updates through our Discord server. I asked them to take care of my stuff while I was donating, which they did. Eventually, they called my name. I recognized a few members of staff from my last donation, remembered a mildly funny story. Then they stuck the needle in my right arm, and a little bruise formed immediately. Apparently that just happens sometimes, and it means they can't take a donation from that side. The carer asked about my other arm. Nope, I had the iron test, can't take from there. So I can't donate tonight, which is annoying, because I got stabbed with like 3 needles and waited something like 2 hours. But honestly, that just happens sometimes, so yeah, it's frustrating, but it couldn't be helped, and anyway, I'm allowed to come back in 7 days, so whatever. I texted my dad to pick us up. He made fun of me for a dad joke. We went home and me and the girls ordered pizza. But wait a second. Let's do this one more time. A little slower. I arrived and filled in the form with the declaration, with my awkward answering all of the different gender questions. All went okay, though the woman doing it with me needed a more senior colleague to sign off on a medication I take. This medication being Decapeptyl, a form of birth control, which as a trans dude I take to stop menstruation. I took the finger prick test and it showed my blood has 134 grams of hemoglobin per litre, where I actually needed 135, so I was given a blood test in my left arm. This time, the result was 136, so I was cleared for donation. Due to a bit of bad luck, they couldn't take from my right arm that night, and since I had the arm test, my left wasn't viable either. The hemoglobin levels necessary for donation are different based on your hormonal profile, because testosterone increases production of hemoglobin. For men, the cutoff for blood donation is 135, and for women, it's 125, based on that hormonal profile. I am a trans guy, no medical or physical transition so far, and I got 134, which would be well within range if I was a cis woman, but just a little low for a cis man. Speaking in general terms, I have a lot more biologically in common with the female standard, because they haven't stabbed the testosterone EpiPen into me yet. Soon. It's happening. I got the news. I'm going to be on hormones soon. It's really good. But yet, I am tested against male standards of hemoglobin, because I use a male name and he pronouns. I have to achieve a substantially higher result than a cis woman with the exact same hormonal profile as me. And this got me thinking, right? Blood donation is harder for trans men because of this hoop to jump through. My iron level is perfectly healthy and would be plenty for a woman, but literally 2 grams less iron in my blood as a trans man could get me deferred for months. And if it happened 3 times in a row, I could be deferred indefinitely. Not allowed to give, though if I was a cis girl it would be fine, even though my body is physiologically the same, with the same hormonal profile. I have to reach a cis male standard without having the testosterone to boost my iron levels. Yes, that's policy. Measures are put in place for physical, medical reasons, whether legitimate or not. But which physical standards you are tested by is measured by gender identity? I'm honestly not sure what the logic is behind a policy that measures trans people by a standard that is different than our bodies allow. I think it's a woefully misguided attempt at not being transphobic, and I respect that, and I understand why this might seem tricky to navigate. You want to be respectful. You want people to feel like you acknowledge and accept their identity. But it just isn't fair. And by its design, it could result in the disproportionate refusal of trans men as donors. Like, this is one of the times you just gotta use your common sense and say, yes, trans men are men. But trans men who have not yet undergone hormone replacement therapy have a generally different physiology to the average cis man. So it makes sense to take that into account when measuring physical things, and therefore not measure them by the hormonal profile that assumes you have male levels of testosterone. That obviously doesn't have to come at the expense of trans acceptance, by the way. Trans men obviously shouldn't be misgendered at blood drives. Here's what I do off the top of my head. I changed the criteria to say that 135 grams per litre is for people who, have this hormonal profile. I don't really know how to describe it. So this is the standard for people who have high testosterone or whatever. It could be worded with more inclusive language maybe, but I can't think of it right now and I don't mind too much. And 125 is for people who have the typically female hormonal profile. They don't have the high levels of testosterone. I'd be okay with that. This is one of the few times it makes sense to differentiate between trans, at least non-physically transitioned trans people, and cis people, because it's an actual difference. A weird side note, this also applies to the deferral for men who have sex with men, which, by the way, I think is ridiculous. If you're a man and you've had sex with another man in the last 3 months, you can't donate blood because of a supposedly higher risk of HIV. Doesn't matter. If you're 100% monogamous with a guy who's tested as negative, you're still not allowed to donate, whereas a promiscuous heterosexual is, though they are obviously at higher risk, and the blood gets tested for HIV anyway. But whatever. If you're gonna have bullshit rules, shouldn't they at least be consistently enforced? If it's the physical nature of gay sex that apparently will give you AIDS, doesn't that fall apart when you also say that trans people count as their self-declared gender regardless of their level of transition? 2 cis dudes? Nope. Cis dude and cis girl? Fine. Cis dude and trans guy? Nope. 2 trans girls? Fine. 2 trans guys? Nope. Is it or is it not about physical sex? You don't get to have both. So, I'm not angry. Not really. At least not at anyone. Just frustrated. Being a trans dude, you have to occupy liminal spaces, often subtle and social. And nobody wants to talk about it. I know that in the grand scheme of things, 10 grams of hemoglobin at a blood drive basically doesn't matter at all, but it's a concrete example. Why is it the well-meaning policies and social convention think that trans acceptance is treating trans people exactly the same as cis folk, even when we're not. Why isn't it more about just being respectful and making reasonable accommodations? I don't know. Being a trans dude sometimes reminds me of that feeling of a constant in-between, of the paradox of being a teenager. You're a man. You have to act like a man. You have to do what men do. But also, you're not enough of a man. Both in times like these when my body just physically is not doing the same things as a cis man's, and more socially, like the expectation that I hyperperform masculinity to be accepted. I cannot do girly things. People hate it when I do girly things. Don't I know I'm already on thin ice by existing out of traditional manhood? You're basically still just a girl. Don't make us play along with your delusions of being a boy. You're a girl. I know best. Stop it. Just stop it. I know I'm different to most people. It's not a contradiction for me to say I deserve respect and for my differences to be taken into account. I don't know the exact reasons why testosterone increases hemoglobin levels, or exactly how much it really does differ based on your hormonal profile. I'm sure it's also complicated for intersex people, and probably someone else can say some super interesting stuff about that. But that's not the point, is it? The point is, the bar is raised for guys like me above what we should be expected to achieve based on the flesh prison we inhabit. Medical results based on social criteria. It just doesn't make sense, and seems destined to make it harder to donate as a trans guy than either as a cis guy or a cis girl. Nothing you can say about the science of that will change it on principle. So, that's all I wanted to say, I guess. This isn't a very logical solution. It seems so obvious to me we should just be inclusive of identities, but not avoid acknowledging trans people's generally different experiences like some kind of taboo. And it's not really about blood in the end. It's about thinking about the rules we have, and why we have them, and if they actually do us any good. So hi, that was my video about donating blood while being a trans guy. It's kind of weird. I went over the plans for what I was going to say a few times because I was a little worried that it would sound exclusionary, and I know I didn't really talk about non-binary people or anything. Yeah, sorry about that. I think it's important to remember this video is mostly about kind of the trans male experience, though basically anyone who fits outside of the very traditional cis man, cis woman binary probably has something to say about this. Trans women, intersex people, non-binary people. I would also like to say, TERFs fuck off. Just in case you're still here, even though this is a video about a trans person talking about trans stuff. If you kind of like the fact that I was saying things like biological man or whatever, fuck off, this wasn't for you. I would also like to say hi to any of my normal subscribers who for some reason watched this much longer video that wasn't about vocaloid. It was about being trans and blood, which actually isn't very similar. Well, I mean, maybe. You know, if that's you, if you're one of my regular subscribers and you're here, thanks. This is who I am. I'm a human being. I don't just sing vocaloid songs. I don't know, I have ideas sometimes about the real world. It's important to think about that real old world. If you're a kid, keep that in mind. I'm thinking my next cover will probably be Gift from the Princess Who Brought Sleep by Mothy, if that's of interest to you. And if it's not that, it might be another thing. I'm keeping kind of on the down low, but it's a song from, it's not a Vocaloid song, but it's from like some kind of anime weeaboo crap that I'm sure you'll love anyway. I'm also going to do Genesis Girl Gretel, like the second Mothy drops it, and no one can stop me because I'm so powerful. If you're a trans guy who had the same problem at a blood drive and you googled it and this is the only thing that you could find because for some reason no one talks about this, hello. I'm sorry that the world is like this. I hope it becomes less like this. Oh fuck, I've been recording for like 20 minutes. Oh my fucking god, editing this is gonna be terrible. Bye.